Is the point then around how we view resilience? Or?
Yeah, I suppose how we view it, and how I suppose there's something inherent in this young chap that just did that, and it hit it on the head, as it were. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we played around with was the idea that it's like a cyborg. So he's toured up with his pee bag. And we did have this image of playing around. They did go around the kind of classroom with these two wheelbarrows just ready to empty any time. Because it I suppose touches upon some of the work by Donna Haraway around the notion of the cyborg as the ways in which bodies are always in connection and plugged in to machines in particular ways. So in terms of resilience, I think what's interesting is it's not just Kurt, it's Kurt plus prosthesis. That's interesting. And it's also got us thinking a bit more about how some disabled kids actually are already plugged in to a variety of relationships that they can call upon for resilience. So it's interesting, like with the iPad, like if you've been using augmentative communication aids for years, you've been kind of iPadding for years. And now, one of the things I'd like to know is the advent of the iPad. Does that mean that kids that don't use speech but use that are more cyborg-like than people who have only just started using iPads? So this is, I suppose what the point is about flipping our view around how we view the disabled body, not as a deficient thing, but as a possibility for, to use the words of McCrew, cripping the norms. And that's quite helpful. So the notion of resilience, that's an interesting one, is resilience where you crip normative standards around you. I mean, another example we've got is of a mum we spoke to whose 30-year-old boy would come down and see her before and after he masturbated, right? And it was, this wasn't in our research aims to actually talk about that. But so this kind of stuff came up, and that was a very interesting discussion, because how do you make sense of that? Because one of the ways is to say, well, here you have a boy that doesn't know his boundaries. But what was interesting when we talked to the mum, we played around this idea, she said, well, not really. She said, if I'm honest, do you want my 13-year-old boy coming down sweating a lot and telling me what he's done? She said, he'll never talk to his dad about it. He'll only talk to me. She said, well, what's actually happened is it promoted and pushed a family discussion around sexuality, and because he'd got a sister and whatever. And suddenly, as you put it, we're having discussions that I never thought I'd have about my children. So I think that is another example of something which might seem at first a bit, a bit, weird and abnormal, but actually could be viewed in more affirmative ways. And I think that's our kind of point, is around the disabilities, trying to look at disabilities and opportunity.
What was interesting as well was the fact the wee boy, instead of putting in the piss boy from the journal's perspective, because I think the crudeness and the vulgarness of the piss actually could have been very important in the context of this case because of his disability, and that itself would have justified more exploration from the children's context. I
think absolutely, and the way we understand it is that disability studies has been really bad to talk about leaky bodies, and for lots of disabled people or physical impairments, leaking, whatever that may mean, right, it's quite a common mundane experience, but it's something we don't talk about because, it's drawing the attention back to the body. Yeah. But actually, it's not really. It's actually drawing attention back to the standards and norms around bodies, isn't it? Because that's the crucial thing. I mean, there's a great example of Len Barton, he talks about a very well-known professor of disability studies who's a wheelchair user, and they were in this conference, and he said it was appalling. We went to the bar afterwards, and the wheelchair, the washroom wasn't wheelchair accessible, so we had to empty his catheter into a beer bottle. And I said, well, being playfully, I said, well, that sounds like a great idea. You could just sit there drinking and just empty. Everyone could do it, right? And my point was, is there a point in there? Because what you have there is an opportunity to think about the body as possibility. I'm not suggesting we all sit around here with bottles, but it did seem to me that thinking around bodies is often what they can't do, what they lack, and it raised for me the standards or expectation. We think often of, with a little kid when they need to go to the wee by the side of the road. Well, you can't do that as an adult. I'm not here to argue that we should be doing this. It's very clear. It's not like some kind of project that I want to do. I just think it's a very interesting. It raises very interesting ideas about the standards of bodily comportment.
Yeah, I would say about that divide that the vast creativity that would be in everybody, he was so creative. I mean, I would have to say well done. And I suppose he was expressing himself through his letter. What a creative way. And sometimes we can, we can look at creativity, the child can draw or paint, but what creativity is there? And I would say sometimes the same challenging behaviour. I would often say to my students, who are they challenging? They are so creative as well, because maybe perhaps that is the only way they have expressing what's going on for them emotionally or whatever. And I think sometimes we need to look at that side of everybody.
That's a really lovely point. It reminded me that we spoke to a teacher at the project, and there's one particular lad who was, the educational assessment, low achieving, not going to reach his SATs. He's 9 years old. And this teacher said, do you know what we need to do? We need to construct a small bar area in the classroom, give him a pint glass with lemonade and just let him sit there all day. And just occasionally, when we're getting a bit, it's a bit tense or it's a bit boring, tell us a joke, James. Because her point was that the school was failing him. Because, and it's going back to your point, but actually if you're looking for a light relief, every day you just tell James, tell us a joke. And he would just do it, but of course you can't get assessed on that. Maybe you could NDQs in comedy. And that's a really exciting point around how do we measure creativity, not just get dull.
Any other comments?
I'm wondering about that as well. Like, okay, he wasn't picked on again, but he's in a school, so it's an institution. It's a socially, informed one. So was there repercussions for what he did, and then how did that affect him?
No, there weren't any repercussions.
Okay.
I think the teachers turned out.
Like that. That's right.
Excusing the pun.
Yeah, exactly.
Visually impaired eye. But I think that your point's very, very significant there, because I think in institutions there are institutional requirements. Actually, it's a very brave act for the teachers to like that. And a lot of it, that's an interesting one, isn't it, about some of the most inclusive practices in schools go on, but then whistle them out.
Right.
Because if they do come out, there will be risk issues, health and safety issues.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big things we found with disabled kids is that they're being excluded from leisure pursuits, and one of those is school trips, because a number of them, the schools, because of the risk and health and safety issues, are expecting those things to be addressed. So these kids are expected to bring their parents with them on the school trips. So a lot of them say, I'm not going. I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to go with my mother.
Yeah.
10. Grown up.
Was there another comment?
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to something you said at the very start about what is it about disability that can lead to a result of people staring or feeling scared. And I'm just thinking about staring as a metaphor for so much of what we do. I mean, in a sense, what we're doing today is a form of staring. And each of us in our jobs, in the services we work in, etc., 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 it just strikes me as a very powerful image or metaphor. And I know a good number of years ago there was a book written by, I think it was Valerie Sinison, called Mental Handicap and the Human Condition. But in it she said that people with, whatever the terminology at the time was, I don't know, but people with what we now call intellectual disability. She made the point that there is one group of people in human history that we have struggled, and I'm saying we, have struggled with to find the correct terminology. And it seems, it almost strikes me that everything will only be okay when we get to a place we don't actually need to talk about it anymore. It has happened, it's over.
That's right, it's done with.
There's some kind of closure has happened that
Yeah.
puts a stop to all the talking and the staring. Just a thought.
No, I mean, I like Silas's work. I mean, one of the things we're playing around with at the moment is to develop I'm not sure we could do this, but a book which is called The Psychopathology of the Non-Disabled. It's basically a spoof kind of, diagnosis and pathological assessment of how the non-disabled deal with anything that's outside of their norms. There's a great example, I don't know if you've seen it, it's worth visiting, it's the study, the Institute for the Study of the Neurologically Typical. And it's a website set up by people with the label of autism to find out for parents if they want to diagnose if their kids are normal. And it's hilarious, so it does things like the pathological need to engage with lots of people and have lots of friends. And I like that idea because that interesting one about kind of what is it within the non-disabled register that allows for staring, but also some of the most bizarre, friends of mine, friends, get asked all the time, what happened to you then? Or a mum, she's walking down the street with a child who's got Down syndrome, and someone came up to a stranger, did you have the test? One of the best was a mum with a child with learning difficulties going onto the fairground ride at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and she went to pay, and the guy said to her, don't worry love, we don't charge for retards. So it's like, because in that screwed up moment, he is actually trying to be nice. And it's that kind of, so I like the idea of kind of, what is it with these weird normals?